3, 2, 1. Doug Kide here with this week's Patriots video mailbag. Tweet me your questions at Doug Kide using that hashtag MailDoug. First question, Kurt asks, who would you draft at 15? Trade up? Trade down? Thank you, Kurt. Someone finally asking me what I would do if I were the Patriots picking 15th overall in the 2021 NFL Draft. And I would try to trade up for that quarterback, whether it is Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones. I'm personally a big fan of Fields and Lance. Maybe not quite as big of a fan of Mac Jones, but I do still think that he's a first-round quarterback. Patriots spent a ton of money this offseason improving the rest of their roster, but what's that one thing that they're still missing? The franchise quarterback. So they're picking 15th overall this offseason. They haven't picked this high in quite a while at this point. They actually have the draft capital to move up. I think there's a spot there at number 8 where the Carolina Panthers are picking where they wouldn't mind moving down. Patriots can move up. It all depends on whether those quarterbacks are still available at that spot. But that is what I would do. If a quarterback's not there, if the Patriots can't trade up, then I would just hope that one of those wide receivers, whether it's Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, or Devontae Smith, is still available. If they're not, then you either trade down or take the best player available. Second question here, Rhino asks, if we don't draft a quarterback in the first round of the draft next week, what position do you think the Patriots will target? So that first question was asking me what I would do. Now I'm telling you what I think the Patriots will actually do. And there's two players to watch here for me. USC offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker, kind of similar to Isaiah Wynn, played guard and tackle in college. Little bit undersized. Maybe some teams would not view him as a tackle. I think the Patriots would. The other guy, Miami defensive end Jalen Phillips. He's a really interesting player, and that he might be the best defensive player in this draft. But there's injury issues there. I think he suffered 2 or 3 concussions in college, had an ankle injury, had a wrist injury. So there's some risk involved taking Jalen Phillips that high, but it could really work out for you if he does become the best defensive player in the draft. Defensive end is definitely a premier position, and he could be that really fearsome pass rusher in the Patriots defense. Final question here. Just going to say it's Pat's STH 1969. Very long question here, but basically he's asking if the 49ers would be willing to trade Jimmy Garoppolo at some point during the draft. And I think it's possible. I think that if the 49ers draft Mac Jones at 3rd overall, they're basically doing that knowing that they want him to start in 2021. Otherwise, I don't really see the point in drafting Mac Jones. If they take Mac Jones, it's because they saw what he did at Alabama last season, and they're saying that's exactly what we want him to do on our offense, and we know that he can do it based on what we saw last season. Now, if they take Justin Fields or Trey Lance, then I think that that's a little bit more of a projection. Maybe they want to start them in 2022, keep Jimmy Garoppolo around in 2021. But if they draft Mac Jones, I do think that that could potentially make Jimmy Garoppolo available. I don't know if the Patriots would trade a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, a future pick, but I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo would be back in the conversation if they do draft Mac Jones. If they draft one of the other guys, then maybe Jimmy Garoppolo becomes part of the conversation in the future. Next offseason, the Patriots could trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe after the summer, they could trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe at mid-season, they could trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. I do think Garoppolo's eventually going to become available. When he becomes available depends on which quarterback the 49ers take. But we're right back here talking about Jimmy Garoppolo again. I know for the last month we've been talking about the draft, but he does become part of this equation for the Patriots about whether or not they are going to take a quarterback. If they wind up trading up for Lance or Fields or Jones, then maybe they don't trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. But if they don't come away with one of those top quarterbacks, I do think that he re-enters the conversation here.
PNC Bank, helping to make banking easier.